It's the Sean Widmer Podcast. It's a journal by someone that just really doesn't like to write.
Oh, wow. What a day. It's one of my favorite days of the year today. It's one of my favorite days of the year. This is not going to be the feelings across the family for this. Selection Sunday is when I'm recording this late on Selection Sunday. And Selection Sunday out here on the East Coast, it's my first East Coast Selection Sunday or Eastern Standard Time Selection Sunday. 6 o'clock. Used to 3 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock here. And so it's been a rough one. I feel sorry for my wife. And I don't make the schedule, Anna. I don't make the schedule for how March works, but we're in it now. She was like, are we going to watch Love is Blind episodes tonight? Are we going to finally catch up on some of these things and finish this off? And I was like, I would love to, but my phone, I've been on the phone or recording podcasts with people since the tournament brackets got released. I just got done recording with Jack Ferris for Sack and Jack podcast, the Gonzaga podcast on the Believe Networks. I just got done, I'm sure, making people mad because I get to relay my yearly feeling that Jim Nance is not going to be doing the tournament this year, and that's good for me. And there's a lot of reasons why that is. People just think I hate Jim Nance. I'm just ready for change. I need to freshen things up. I like to spice things up every now and then in the relationship. And my relationship with college basketball just needs a little spice up. I need Jim Nance to be done. We need to put him in the past so we can look back and go, remember when Jim Nance was the guy and he was so rad? But that's not for here. That's not for this podcast. That's for Sack and Jack. You can go hear those comments there. You are going to get some college basketball talk later because I have a message to all those bracket talkers this week. It's our yearly reminder to them. There was a story that was brought to my attention today when I was doing I mentioned the other day, I wake up early in the morning and I go to the news and I read like weird news stories. I try to stay away from real news because I'm not, one, some of it makes me nervous. And the other reason I like to just live in a fake world, a magical world. And so I just read weird news stories, and one of them sparked my interest. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. I listened to a podcast that had something brought up by my buddy Jeremy that I thought was interesting as it relates to my kids and something that I want for their lives, and a message to McDonald's. But before any of that happens, we haven't done this in forever. There was, 3 years ago on the podcast, the goal was to try to get 100 reviews on iTunes, and we did it. And then since then, I think we've had 4 or 5 in the last 2.5 years. So it was weird when I got a notification the other day that there was a review on iTunes. And one of the things was we read all the 5-star reviews off of iTunes to promote, to do that. Well, now I do that instead at the end of the show with the comments. We'll get to the comments, including a very special comment from someone here in Lexington that surprised me. I was very excited about seeing their name pop up. We'll get into that. But we get to read a 5-star review on iTunes. This has been forever. JareBear forever hit the review button, gave the 5-star review, and said, "Great podcast. Sean is a great host. Always keeps his show engaged and entertaining. Been a fan forever and will continue to listen to this great show." JareBear forever. Thank you for the 5-star review on iTunes. We were at 100 reviews on iTunes. The goal met 3 years ago. We are now at 109. It slowed. It slowed just a little tiny bit, the reviews did. Okay, let's get into the show today. I have a quick memo to McDonald's. Puzzles are not toys. I am a puzzle lover. Puzzle lover. I have been known to do a lot of puzzles throughout the entire year, not just during Christmas. Used to have the puzzle table set up in multiple places that I lived, including the last one upstairs. Had the specific card table that I had a puzzle going on a lot. And I love them. But McDonald's, my daughter doesn't want to open up a Happy Meal and get a puzzle. They're not toys. They're almost frustrating. We treated the kids the other night. We were going to a baseball game I talked about on Friday's podcast. And on the way there, we were like, you know what, let's get the kids Happy Meals. This will be our treat for dragging them to the game, because we knew that at the game, we weren't just going to let them run free, so we were going to corral them. We thought, let's use some Happy Meals as their reward for being good listeners, even though we knew that was going to be a long-lost thing. But this would maybe keep them close. And we rip open the Happy Meals. My daughter, of course, immediately wants her toy, and I pull out the little tin that has a 6-piece puzzle in it, and the look on her face of complete devastation as she said to me, "Can we go back and get a toy?" It was fair commentary from Olivia. My 2-year-old son gets the same one. He's like, what? He actually loved the tin that it came in because we were at the baseball stadium and he used the tin to scoop up dirt and put it in the tin. So he just threw the puzzle pieces away. He threw them on the ground and used the tin to collect dirt, and he would close the dirt in and then he would lift it up and open it, and LeBron James dirt all over the place. Puzzles are not toys, Mickey D's. Toys are toys. Puzzles are not. Speaking of toys, I listened to a podcast this week. There's 2 things that happened this week when it related to kind of the same world, and it got me excited about stuff for my kids. As I listen to the podcast every Monday, The Wizard and the Bruiser. And they kind of do a 1990s, sometimes it goes to the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. I guess it would be, I'm not even pop culture. It is toys and entertainment, kind of, and electronics. I don't exactly know what the stuff they talk about is, but it's kind of in that world. Toys, entertainment, and electronics from that era, and they deep dive the things in that time frame. And this week, they did one on Pogs and Beanie Babies. And it was a really interesting podcast, and I learned a lot about how the Beanie Baby landscape worked. And I'm not going to break it down here because you can go listen to the podcast. But I loved Pogs as a kid, and I didn't realize here in the States, they started to get outlawed because they were a form of gambling. And it makes sense now looking back on this that one of the biggest trends of my life when it came to toys, which were Pogs, the little circular discs about maybe 1.5 inches wide and all sorts of the diagrams on them. I had a ton of Looney Tune ones. I had some Ninja Turtle ones that I absolutely adored. And then I had a bunch that were just weird designs on them, fireworks, neon lights, all this stuff, and just stacks of them. But in Venezuela, they had a long time where if you bought a pack of Doritos, so Doritos nacho cheese, do I need to tell you what flavors Doritos has? Do you think you can figure that out by yourself? Cool Ranch, you heard of it? When you would buy one of those, inside the bags, the mini bags of chips, they had one Looney Tunes Pog. And so you would open the bag of chips, and then inside of it was a little plastic baggie with the Pog in it. So we would collect these Pogs with these chips. It was great. And I loved them. And I loved collecting them, but I loved the game because I'm a game player, and I love any kind of game. And I loved the concept of stacking your Pogs up with other people, throwing the slammer down, flipping over the Pogs, and you collected the ones that you flipped over. And we always did the thing where you'd put your Pogs out, and I think it was, you picked 5 to 10 of them, you'd stack them up out there, and whoever won the round, so whoever had flipped over the most Pogs by the time they were all flipped over, they got to choose one Pog out of the pile to take as their own. And so it was a big deal, right? Every now and then you'd be like, okay, this round, we've got to come in with some of your favorites. You can't just put in all your crappy ones because the crappy ones were just getting recycled like crazy. And I just remember loving it. And then I realized, it got frowned upon because it was a form of gambling. And they actually, in the podcast, mentioned the thing I wanted to talk about on this one, my favorite toy fad as a kid that had to do with this kind of world, a world that I hope my kids get to live in at some point. The problem is they're probably not going to get to, since a lot of this stuff is looked at as gambling. Marbles. So in Venezuela, there was 4 seasons, and one of them I forget because I don't think I participated in it. But there was kite season, and everyone would make and get kites and fly kites. So there was a really windy season in Venezuela, and everyone had kites. It was crazy. You would just go outside, and everyone was flying kites. It was all the kids. Then another season was tops, and little wooden tops, and everyone would be out flinging their tops around, doing tricks. There were some kids who were wildly good at the tops, and they'd spin them, and then they'd get them back on the string and flip the string up and launch these things and catch them back on the string and land them back on the ground. You do top battles. We'd launch them at each other, and you try to see what not only the last top standing was, but you try to crash them into each other. So there was top season. There was a toy season that I do not remember what it was. And then there was marble season. And me, as a kid, marble season in Venezuela was everything. And I was never good at marble season, so it ended poorly for me every year. But I loved it. And you would bring your marbles down to, I look now, it's just it was a big empty field. We called it a dump because people would sometimes come down and dump their trash in it. but this huge empty field in between these neighborhoods in Venezuela, and there was a couple of them around town, and you knew where the spots were for marbles, and you'd go there and you'd play marbles against any other kid that was down there, and the winner got to take the loser's marbles. And so there was two ways we would play it. One was you had you made a big circle, and in the middle you dug a little hole about, I don't know, an inch deep, maybe a little less than an inch deep. And the goal was to get your marble into the hole. Once you were in the hole, your marble was poison. And then you would take your metra and you would try to hit everyone else's marble. And if you were poisoned and you hit someone else's marble, you got that marble. And so, the goal was to try to get all the marbles, last marble standing won, and we'd reset and do it again. That was with the big circle, and you had to keep your marbles in this circle. So if your marble went out of the circle, you had to bring it back in the circle and put it right on the edge. The other way we played it, we would go to sections of the dump that the dirt was kind of all over the place, and we'd make a course. And so you'd have to, there would be hills you could hide behind, and we'd make a little marble battle course, and you'd play on that one, which was fun. But I really enjoyed just a flat circle. Everyone stands around it, flips their marbles in, try to make it in the hole, get poisoned, and the strategy behind that. And it was really fun. And I guess that was a thing in the States, according to this podcast, in the 50s and 60s. Of course, made its way to Venezuela and lived there forever because it's cheap. And that was how everything was in a third world country. And so in the 90s, it was a huge deal still. And I still think back to those times with fond memories and wish that would happen for my kids. And it all comes around because this week, my buddy Jeremy had mentioned he got a 3D printer, and coming back as a fad for kids, and his kids are in elementary school, are those snakes that are all connected. There's pieces connected, tail to head, and you can hold them, and they just move back and forth. They don't do anything. It's not like you can play a game with them, but they're kind of coming back as a fad in Jeremy's kids' schools. And I was like, okay, that's a cool toy, and I love when kids have a toy that's going through the fad time, like when fidget spinners were all the rage a few years ago. I just love that kind of stuff. I get into that. But I want my kids to have at least one that's like marbles for me. And maybe it'll be a card game like Pokemon. I never got into Pokemon because I was too old for it. But I remember when Pokemon stuff was happening thinking, oh, that's really cool. Because I loved this game called Showdown that was played with baseball cards. Well, they weren't baseball cards. They were cards with baseball players on them. And they had a whole game with rolling the dice. Then we had a bunch of them, and you just take on your buddies, and you build your team out of all the cards that you had. You try to put together a perfect lineup, and we played Showdown. And so I always assumed Pokemon was kind of like that. You get a collectible card, and then you get to battle it in a fun game. So I'm excited about that for my kids, and I'm excited to be in on it and get into it and fuel that fire because I have such fond memories of marbles with my buddies in Venezuela. And I'm excited for that part of being a parent and getting to see the excitement in my kids' eyes when there's a craze going on, and pumping them up about it, learning about it, hearing the stories about it, listening to them talk through whatever the competition was that included those things. I'm excited. Anyways, marbles. I freaking missed that. I would go out today if there was some kids, adults in the area who wanted to bust out some marbles. I sucked at it, but I'd get out there and play again. It was so fun. Okay, let's do a quick story before we get into Kelly's What Are You Into? This story came out. I saw it this morning when I was drinking my coffee on the couch. It was from the U.S. Sun, and it's about Walmart potentially charging at self-check. And then there was another story that came out, follow-up to this, from the News Journal that covered more of this self-check move that might be happening in the United States. And this is wild. So there's a video that came out that said some guy, he posted on TikTok that Walmart was charging him $98 to use self-check. And immediately Walmart shut it down and said, no, that's not the case. But then with some research, it was shown that around the country, self-checkout lanes at Walmart, there's a handful of them that are usable only to Walmart Plus subscribers or Spark delivery drivers, and that's in certain locations. Okay, this is according to Business Insider. So I have not seen this at any of the Walmarts I've been to, but you know how you got all your self-check lanes, which, by the way, at the Walmarts here in Lexington, I haven't seen a checker at an aisle in forever. Every time I go to Walmart to get stuff, it's the only option is self-check lanes. I'll walk by the ones where I think there might be someone working. They're just not there. It's self-check or nothing. And so in some of these stores, Walmart is shutting down certain lanes, and they're saying, look, you can only use these if you pay the $12.95 a month subscription to Walmart Plus, and it's kind of like a fast pass to self-check. This is crazy to me, man. And if we're going to get to the point, as I was reading these, Spark Delivery, I don't know what that is. I'm assuming it is if you order your groceries online and then someone comes and picks it up, they can then self-check them real quick through that to get them to you quicker. I'm assuming that's what that is. And I'm sure Spark and Walmart have a deal together that they're trying to use them on the app. I don't know the ins and outs of that. But if I have to start paying to use self-check, or if there's only one self-check aisle for us non-subscribers, and I'm waiting in line for 30 minutes to get access to it while the ones for the subscribers are just wide open, this is going to be nutso. And just when this was a thing that affected video games in a big way when Battle Pass hit everything and a lot of games. I mean, even in the sports world, Madden with Ultimate Team, these games start getting to be pay to win and really pay to play and enjoy it at the maximum on a monthly or a lot of maybe 3 or 4 times a year, a quarterly payment to subscribe for something, right? With Fortnite, you in a battle pass in a game like that, in a battle royale, you're paying for the battle pass so that you can access skins for your character, get different looks for your guns, get little accessories for your character that are different, animations that are different, and you can play the game without it. But if you really want to maximize it, you're paying this subscription fee to maximize the game. And this has been a major talking point in the video game world for the last 6 years. And it's now, so I'm familiar with the arguments in this world. I say that to say I'm familiar with it. You may be like, what are you talking about? Well, I'm just telling you, these conversations suck. And if they start making their way into the grocery stores, where the moms are, where the moms with Facebook are, I mean, the Battle Pass conversations were brutal with the video game nerds. You throw the moms from Facebook into that discussion, it's about to get crazy. We are going to get some all-time great rants on this one. So this is something to keep an eye on, and I don't know how it's going to go. I will say this about the internet right now. It seems like when companies start to put their feelers out on an idea, things are getting shut down by the mob of the internet fairly quickly. I didn't really follow the Wendy's story all the way, but there was a story that came out last week where they were going to do some changes with their menu, and I think it was going to be pricing during specific time. Prices would change on their menu. So if there was peak hours at the store, prices were going to change on their menu. I believe that's what it was. Don't all the way quote me on it because I didn't follow it perfectly. Anyways, whatever they were trying to do, the internet rose up and said, no, screw you, that's not happening, and Wendy's backed off it. And in fact, I think they backed off it so much, they went the other way, and they're offering $1 cheeseburgers during March. It's something like that. Again, I haven't followed the story completely. You have access to the internet. Just check it out. But I know there's a deal in there where at some point in time during the day, they're offering $1 cheeseburgers. So the internet shut down their whole plan. The internet's not going to like this if you're going to have to start paying for self-check. I'm assuming they're not going to like this, just having been in the video game talk. And I'm excited to see how this goes and what Walmart does with it. I do think, though, we are going to be in a world soon where there's going to be maybe not, not the majority of self-check, but definitely not a small minority of the self-check will be accessible by a subscription fee. It makes sense for the business. They're not using checkers anymore. They're going to turn all their lanes into self-check. And it seems to make sense in terms of business. I've been at a time or two at a grocery store a time or two when you get in a self-check situation where you're waiting and you're going, man, if I could just get to the front. Well, would you pay $10 a month to be able to access the lanes that aren't as utilized? Maybe. So, excuse me. See, I brought my water this time. Now I can reset all that. But this is an interesting story to me. I enjoyed reading it today. I wanted to make it make it something that you're aware of so you can look at it. It'd be a good thing to put in the comments. Are you okay with some potential self-check lanes being a subscription, having a subscription fee to use? How much would you pay? Let me know. Put it in the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube or going to the website, seanslife.com, or listening on Spotify. Let me know.
Kelly's, what are you into?
Oh, the brackets are out. Gonzaga plays against McNeese State on Thursday. McNeese State, and again, this is not the Gonzaga podcast. If you want to go hear my thoughts on Gonzaga, you can go listen to Sack and Jack. I was on there with Jack. Rob was not on this week. Rob was down in L.A. doing Rob things. McNeese State, Seth Davis, Clark Kellogg, dudes on CBS picked McNeese State to pull the upset. The powerhouse that is McNeese State, who went 28-3 this year. That's a really good record. They beat Michigan. They did beat Michigan. Michigan's not good. They're not in the tournament. They fired their coach this year. Michigan's not good. But they did beat them. In their conference, they play teams like Houston Baptist, Lamar, Texas A&M Commerce, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Houston Baptist, right? They're not playing as, they're not, their schedule's not like this crazy good schedule. Now, they also had these 4 huge games in the preseason. 28-3 McNeese State. These were games that counted on their record. The College of Biblical Studies, Champion Baptist, Le Tourne, and Mississippi University for Women, who they beat 92-23. I'm not worried about McNeese State. Could they beat them? Could they beat Gonzaga? Yeah, every team in the tournament could beat any other team in the tournament. We've seen it the last couple of years with 16 seeds beating 1 seeds. But in terms of being worried, this isn't a worry about a game. McNeese State, if they beat Gonzaga, it's for the same reason McNeese State would beat any other team in the tournament, and that is that Gonzaga has a bad game. But that's not a thing that's just because it's Gonzaga. That's if a team has a very bad game in their first round matchup, they can lose. So I'm not worried about it. But this is not what that's about. This is about brackets. I feel like every year I just need to approach this. We need to talk about this before you get out there this year, you wild animals. Everyone's filling out brackets. It's one of my favorite things to do. We love filling out brackets. But there is an etiquette that needs to be approached every year, and people forget about it, and they get out, and they make us all mad, and they're the worst people, and I want to keep you from being the worst person this week. I want you to be great. We're here to make people be great when you listen to the Sean Woodward podcast. This is the statement I want to correct. There is a statement that goes out that says nobody wants to hear about your bracket. Nobody wants to hear about your bracket. You will hear or read someone who has posted that or said that this week. Nobody wants to hear about your bracket. That is not true. But it's mostly true. Very few people care about your bracket. Okay, very few. This weekend, we want to hear about your bracket if you get every game correct. We want to hear about your bracket. You need to tell everyone. If you've got every game correct and you're heading into the second weekend with a perfect bracket, we have to hear about it. Because now we're polling for you, okay? So we want to hear about that. If you are in a bracket pool, we want to hear about your bracket. If we're all in the same bracket pool, we want to hear about your bracket because we are competing against you, so of course we want to know how you're doing. If you miss maybe 1 or 2 games, I kind of want to hear about your bracket, okay? So perfect bracket I absolutely want to hear about. And if you've missed maybe a few, and if you go to, if you're a Yahoo or an ESPN, CBS, whatever, and at the end of the weekend it says you're in the 90 percentile or higher, I want to hear about your bracket. I want to hear about it because I'm now excited moving forward for what you can do. I do not care about your bracket if you're below 90%. If your bracket is, quote, busted on the first day, the first hour, the beginning of the second day, nobody cares. I don't want to hear, well, my bracket's busted, the video crumpling up the bracket, throwing it away, you making a big thing at work where you crumple up your bracket. Oh, that bracket's busted. Nobody cares. All of our brackets end up being busted. You probably don't know very many people who end up at the end of the tournament with a bracket that finishes in the 99th percentile or higher. All of our brackets get busted, especially in the last few years because there is getting to be a lot more parity in college basketball. Just save yourself the embarrassment. Save yourself from being that annoying person. Nobody wants to hear that your bracket's busted, okay? So, again, this is just some tips going into this weekend to stay away, because a lot of people, maybe you don't follow college basketball a lot. Everyone's talking about it at work. Don't be annoying. Now, if you watch games, talk about games you watched. Talk about maybe players you liked in the games you watched. And again, if you are in a pool with people, you can talk about your bracket. If you're in, if you're doing really well, talk about it. But otherwise, we don't care about your bracket at all. If you fill out multiple brackets, that is fine, because there's a lot of websites out there that are offering big prizes for highly successful brackets. I get wanting to get a lot of entries in there. Maybe you're in a bracket pool where you can pay to fill out, every bracket you fill out is $1 or $5 or $10, and you want to fill out $100 worth of brackets. So you fill out multiple brackets to up your chances of winning a bunch of money. You illegals. I get that. If you fill out multiple brackets, though, and come up to me and try to tell me anything about your brackets, no one cares about that. You have upped your odds, so you are going to have a good bracket and you're going to have a bad bracket. If you are a multiple bracket person, you just got to stay to yourself. You got to keep to yourself. And I don't want to hear, well, in one bracket I got Arizona winning the championship, so probably got that. Okay, congratulations. Anyone can fill out a ton of brackets, and in fact, I could fill out 68 brackets and have every team winning. So at any point, anyone, if you fill out multiple brackets, at any point you can say, well, I picked the winner. I knew it. Clemson, national champion, picked that. You don't get to brag about anything with your brackets if you picked out multiple. It's not against the law to fill out multiple. I don't blame you at all, but the second you fill out multiple brackets, you cannot brag. That is just the way it is. You can't brag because you have now completely watered down the whole scheme of bragging about your bracket. Okay, we've got it out there. Again, now I guarantee you I'm going to get the comments, Slim. I just went back into radio mode right there. That is me with PTSD of the texts that I remember getting whenever I'd bring this up, and people just jumping down my throat like, you're so mean. You're so mean. Why are you yelling at us? You're so mean. I'm not. That's not the point of this. The point is I'm trying to save you from the embarrassment of running into people who are diehard sports fans who are really going to get at you and really be bothered by you if you break some of these rules. So consider this help. And there you go. This is my Kelly's What Are You Into? I love myself a bracket. I'm going to print mine out, get it up on the wall. I'll have my one bracket that is filled out with my bracket that I can highlight or put the red marker on. I'll have my other bracket that is to be filled out as the tournament goes on. And then we started this last year. My brother started this last year with Kenny, Ryan, Scott, me. Who is it? Kenny, Ryan, Scott, me, and Travis. Yeah, 5 of us. My favorite way to do any kind of bracket challenge is to get together with people, and let's say you've got 6 people. Everyone draws a number out of a hat, and number 1 gets to pick whatever team they think's going to win it, and then you do a draft of every team. So you do a draft where until all the teams are picked, everyone picks a team, and then you get points based on how far your teams go. So you end up with 10, or you end up with 8, 9 teams, and you follow them through the tournament, and you get points depending on how far they go. And I love that kind of way to do the tournament game, is by drafting teams. And we didn't want to do the draft because we all lived in different places, so we just went to ChatGPT, and we had ChatGPT randomly give the 68 teams that are in the tournament, we randomly gave them to the 5 of us. And then Travis came up with a very fun scoring method where if your team advances, so each round is like, if you win your first round game, you get 1 point. If you win your second round game, you get 2 points. Third round game, 3 points. Fourth round, 4 points, so on and so forth until the championship. If you are the higher seed. So if you're the higher seed in the game, that's how your scoring works. If you are the lower seed, you get whatever point value is higher. And the way the point values work, you either get the difference in your seeding. So if you are a 15 seed beating a 2 seed, you get 13 points for that win. Or you would get the 1 point or 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, so on, whichever of those points is higher. So if you get a small school that is upsetting a lot of teams, your points skyrocket in those first couple rounds, and sometimes that's enough to help you win the whole thing. It was very fun, completely random. There's no strategy in it. It's like pulling on a handle on a slot machine, but we loved it. Okay, this has gone too long. And I already know I'm going to get the hate comments on me being mean to people about their bracket talk, but I truly am trying to be nice. Okay, here we go. Let's do comments. I've got one off of the website, shawnslife.com. It is from Rick, and he says this. I did pitch Dennis to buy or sell the buy or sell segment. I also think you are a very nice guy. Wait a second. Is that Lukens? All right. That's either real Rick Lukens commenting on the podcast, at which point I'm extremely embarrassed, or it's I'm getting trolled, which I'm fine either way. But I just can't, man. Buy or sell. So Patchen, Lukens, and Oso. But now we're just doing a long podcast. Patchen, Lukens, Oso did a segment called Buy or Sell. It was a segment that I remember being so mad about listening to, because they would go through, Steve the Wingman, who I love, would go through and he would come up with a ton of categories for them to buy or sell. And it would be, tournament bracket pick'ems, whatever. And you could buy or sell. So do you like it or do you not like it? The Mariners' new jerseys, buy or sell. And I thought the concept, Rick, if this is actually you and you actually did you did buy or sell. I thought the concept of the segment was fantastic because I wanted to hear Patchen, Lukens, and Oso and Steve the Wingman's opinions on these topics. My problem was they always brought in a phone caller who I didn't care at all about their opinions. And they would ask these buy or sell questions, and because there were so many people participating, they had to really quickly go through their answers to get through the segment in the right amount of time. And so they never really gave context to why they bought or sold it a lot of times. And eventually, sometimes they would do it, but they buy or sell Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And someone, Rick would say sell. And in my head, I'm thinking, I need to know more. I want to hear a minute of Rick telling me why he sold on that one. But they would just move on because they were against such time restraints. So I remember that segment being such a conundrum for my producer brain where I was like, you've got something here. I just want to hear you guys talk about why you bought or sold that item. Washington State Cougars in the NCAA tournament. Buy or sell. I need to hear more than just buy or sell. I need to hear why you chose it that way. But I understood why they couldn't get into it, again, because of the time restraints, which I am following no time restraints here, because for the last 3 minutes, I said the same thing over and over and over, because I'm worried that's actually Rick Lukens commenting, who I ripped, sort of. I was just honest about. And now he also came back and said, I'm a nice guy, which means he is on that team that thinks I stink at sports radio. Rick, man, I did play poker with him one time at Lilac Lanes, and I remember he was like weirdly oozing charisma. He's also really famous in Spokane. All right, let's go to Spotify. Here's the comments on Spotify. Sharon said this, I agree, Bonu needs to go. Not sure how you spell his name. Hope you and your family have a good weekend. Thank you, Sharon. We had a great weekend. Went to some baseball. We went to what did we do? Well, I don't want to say what we did, because Wednesday I've got some stories from the weekend. Thank you, Sharon. And Bonu needs to go. He's got to be out soon. Liability all the way. Survivor's great. Yvonne said this, I got this nasty chest cold too, been off work for a couple days. Sucks. Ghostbusters was a great movie for the time it came out. I can see that. It's not as easy to watch in 2024. Ice Storm was the morning of Andrew's second heart surgery, 10 months old. That is, oh man. Well, I'm glad that went well. But wow. That having any kind of medical deal during Ice Storm was crazy, because power was out everywhere. I mean, everything was shut down during Ice Storm. So that's scary. It's already scary to have your 10-month-old have heart surgery. You throw on there the fact that we're having power issues. Woo! Yvonne, hope you're doing well. Off of YouTube, Roberta said, "Yay, weekend." Yeah, dang right. I love the little comments on YouTube. I feel like I probably shouldn't read all of them, but I'm doing it right now because we don't have a ton of them. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. I think it's Bommarooski. Is my channel Bommarooski? My channel is either Bommarooski or Sean Widmer or Sean T. Widmer. It's either Bommarooski or Sean T. Widmer, one of the two. Okay, the video just went out because I'm getting a phone call. Hang on. Video is out on the pod. Hang on. This is the comment I wanted to talk about as we've now lost video on the pod. This is from a video, not the latest podcast video, but I wanted to bring it up because someone commented on my slideshow, my wedding slideshow, Anna and my wedding slideshow. And it says, "Great song choices." And I was like, that's awesome. The person who commented is my buddy Alex from my D&D group. And I'm so super excited about that. I hope he enjoys the podcast. If he listened to it, I hope he listened to the podcast. I hope he enjoys my stuff on YouTube. Alex is rad. When I moved to Lexington, I left a great group of friends in Spokane, a big group of friends that I loved, and I was very worried about meeting people in Lexington. And Alex is one of the first people I met here at our Dungeons & Dragons group on Tuesday nights, and he's a dude. Like, he's awesome. And so, Alex, cool, man. I appreciate you commenting on the YouTube videos. Okay, I got to go. My wife's blowing me up. Love you all.